We just want to make sure that everyone has access to interpretation services. We have this into Spanish this time and ASL. If you need interpretation services in Spanish, you can go to that little globe down at the bottom of the screen and click the Spanish option, and that will take you into that channel to access. Thank you to our interpreters for joining us today. We so much appreciate it. Our ASL interpreters and our Spanish interpreters are with us today, but we do usually have many more interpreters, so we're thankful for the two that we have today. This session will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube page, so anyone that could not attend can still get the information they need. And a follow-up email will also be sent throughout the after the training is complete, that will have the information that we discussed today. If you do have questions and answers, we do ask that if you have questions, we ask that you put your questions into the Q&A box, and they will be responded to either via live explanation or in the chat by our oh, that's fun, chat is able as participants. Yeah, sorry. If you can access the Q&A box, please do put your questions in there and we will respond via the Q&A box. If you have other questions, you can email us or call us at this email or number that is on the screen right now. And we'll get started. Our agenda for today. Today we'll learn about extreme heat overview, what the heat vulnerability index looks like, heat-related illnesses, signs and symptoms, who's vulnerable, and how to stay safe. We'll also discuss heat and chronic health conditions. So if you or someone you know has a chronic health condition, it's very important to stay healthy and safe, especially when it's hot outside. And then we'll go over some resources that can help you stay cool, you and your family members, friends, neighbors, and everyone stay cool and healthy throughout the summer. First up, I have a question for everyone. If you can maybe put the answers in the Q&A box for now until we can get the chat up and running. What are some of your favorite summer activities to do? If someone could read out some of the answers, because it seems I lost my Zoom thing. So there we go. Never mind. Walking, going to the beach, traveling. Yes, those are all nature walks. Those are all great things. And what I am hearing the most is people like to be outdoors in the summertime, right? We all love that. So we like to stress that that is another reason why it's so important to stay safety and healthy throughout the summer heat, because while we're outdoors, going on those nature walks at the beach, riding our bikes and swimming, you still need to be safe in the heat. So I will turn it over to Miranda, who will talk about the extreme heat overview and give you guys what that insight looks like.
All right. Hello, everyone. So my name is Miranda. I'll be talking today about the extreme heat overview. So we're going to start with just a quick definition of what extreme heat means. That's a phrase we're going to use a lot today. So FEMA defines extreme heat as a period of high heat and humidity where temperatures are above 90 degrees for at least 2 or 3 days. This is something that we have definitely experienced this summer already. I think at the end of this week, we might be falling into this category. So it's very important to be talking about extreme heat today and learning how we can keep ourselves safe and healthy. Extreme heat can be very dangerous for people and pets. It can cause utility disruptions and severe weather. We've definitely had more severe storms this summer, and extreme heat is occurring more often due to climate change. Extreme heat is dangerous because your body is working extra hard to maintain a normal temperature, and without proper care and preparation for these extreme heat events, extreme heat can lead to death. Extreme heat can be very deadly, as I just said. We have a chart up on the screen, which might be surprising to some people. This chart from the CDC shows that on average, over the last 30 years, extreme heat was the most dangerous weather hazard in the United States. So we hear a lot about flooding or tornadoes, hurricanes, and those are very dangerous weather hazards as well. And they're definitely more visible. We see the destruction and damage from flooding. Extreme heat is more silent. We're not seeing the same images of it on the news, but it is the deadliest weather hazard in the United States. In Philadelphia, we are definitely experiencing hotter summers recently. So the average temperature has been rising due to climate change. Climate change happens when greenhouse gases, such as burning fossil fuels, trap the sun's heat and make the planet warmer. Historically, the average temperature in Philadelphia was 84.5 degrees. That was the average historic temperature. What do you all think the average summer temperature will be in the future? You can write it in the chat. It seems like it's working now. 195. So historically, it was an 84.5 degree average summer temperature. Amazing. In the future, it will be a 91 to 96 as our average summer temperature. So most days of the summer will fall into this 91 to 96 degree range. That is very, very hot. We are seeing this more often even this summer. We've had a lot of days that are in the 90s already, and it's just the middle of July. In the past, historically, we have only had 3 days above 95 degrees. So in the past in Philadelphia, we only had 3 days above 95 degrees. In the future, does anyone have a guess? What is the future average number of days above 95 degrees going to be?
Oh no.
4, 6, 7, 10. All right. Get one more guess. 15. All right. It's going to be between 28 and 67 days. So historically, we only had 3 days above 95 degrees. And in the future, we will have between 28 and 67 days above 95 degrees. That is very, very warm. Another question, historically, we had 0 days above 100 degrees. How many days do we think we'll have in the future? If we had 0 days above 100 degrees in the past, how many days do we think we will have in the future? Between 7 and 31 days. So these guesses are all on track. We'll have between 7 and 31 days above 100 degrees. We already had a few this summer. I think we had 1 or 2. So that's just going to keep, numbers going to keep going up. Heat is going to continue to be a threat for our region in Philadelphia. And did you know that in the summer of 2024, Philadelphia recorded 23 days of 90 plus degree weather? So we're already seeing that number tick up to 23 days of 90 plus degree weather. Heat exposure might feel worse in Philadelphia because of something called the urban heat island effect. So this chart shows how temperatures rise from rural areas to suburban areas to urban city areas. In cities, when temperatures might be hitting the 90 degree range, temperatures in the suburbs or in rural areas might stay in the 80s. And this is, does anyone have an idea of why this might be? What might be making Philadelphia hotter than, let's say, Lancaster or our suburban counterparts? Amazing. Concrete versus dirt, buildings and vehicles. So it's mostly because of the built environment. Those buildings, roads, and industrial activities absorb heat and make Philly feel hotter than our suburban and rural counterparts. Cities also have less vegetation, so less trees, less grass, which help cool things down by providing shade. The city takes all of those factors into account, and we have developed something called the Heat Vulnerability Index. So the Heat Vulnerability Index combines the most important factors that are associated with the negative health effects of extreme heat events. So some of those factors are demographic and socioeconomic data. We look at the average age of people in a certain neighborhood. So if areas are more vulnerable, maybe because they have an older population, we look at poverty status, English proficiency, race and ethnicity, and social isolation. We look at health status factors. So this might be asthma, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, COPD. These are factors that might make people more vulnerable to the heat. And we look at environmental exposures. So this includes daytime land surface temperatures, nighttime land surface temperatures. So it measures the actual temperature of how hot the sidewalk is outside. Building density, we talked about the fact that Philly has more buildings, can make it hotter, and vegetation and plant health. The heat vulnerability index is also turned into a map. So this is maybe an easier way to see it. This shows which areas in the city are hottest and coolest during the summer. So neighborhoods with high heat vulnerability, we can see on the map. There's some neighborhoods in North Philly, some neighborhoods in West Philly, a few pockets of South Philly as well. These neighborhoods that we especially want to highlight are like Cobb's Creek, Overbrook, Point Breeze, Strawberry Mansion, Hart Ramp, and Hunting Park. Maria just dropped the link in the chat to explore the heat vulnerability index. You can look up your exact address, you can look up your zip code, areas that you spend a lot of time, and see the temperature where it falls on the heat vulnerability index. Some areas of Philadelphia, these really dark red areas, are 28 degrees hotter than the cooler areas in Center City or over by the Wissahickon. So those areas that are really dark red are 28 degrees hotter than our cooler areas in Center City. This is mainly because of those built environment factors. There's a lot of asphalt, there's fewer trees, there's dark roofs that absorb the heat. So if you or live in one of these areas, or you know people that live in one of these areas, we really recommend checking in on people who live alone in these really hot areas because they might be more vulnerable to the impacts of heat. We recommend staying inside from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to avoid the hottest time of the day. And again, if you're curious, you can use the link in the chat or scan this QR code and look up your exact neighborhood, your exact address to see where it falls in the heat vulnerability index. And my last question for you all, this is, again, everything that we've talked about, we're just going to put into practice. We have two photos up on the screen. The first one is a photo in North Philadelphia, and the second one is a photo in Center City. Can some people tell me in the chat, what are the differences between these two photos? What looks different? Trees, yeah. So the bottom one has trees on both sides of the street. The top one is more of a desert. There's no trees there. Anything else? Yeah, no shade. The cars. So in the top one, there's cars parked on both of the street. So that's more emissions, more cars generally. The bottom one only has these cars on one side of the street. So the cars, the lack of trees. We can't really tell what the roofs are like here, but they might be with the black roofs on the top one, which makes them hotter as well. So there's all these visible differences. This is what makes certain parts of the city much hotter than others. Okay, so with all of that being said, we're now going to talk about heat-related illness, signs and symptoms that you all can look out for. And Maria is going to take it over from here.
Thank you, Miranda. Okay, so now that we've established that extreme heat is increasingly common in Philadelphia, we're going to discuss the public health concerns of extreme heat. So can anyone tell me a heat-related illness that you may know of? You can put it in the chat. Heat stroke. Heat exhaustion, stroke. Yes, great. Dehydration. So asthma can be worsened because of the heat. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about these in the next few slides. So first, we're going to start off with muscle cramps. Muscle cramps are sudden, sharp pains caused by dehydration, which was mentioned in the chat, or losing nutrients. And these are problems that typically people will have during the extreme heat, right? And this is probably one that you hear about often. So along with the heat, with the muscle cramps, you'll experience heavy sweating and painful muscle spasms. If this happens, you'll stop what you're doing, move to a cool spot, and drink water. Don't get back into the activity that caused the cramps. If the cramps last more than an hour, or if you have heart problems or are on a low sodium diet, you want to get help right away. So our next one is heat exhaustion. So heat exhaustion happens when your body gets too hot and struggles to cool down. So this happens in the summertime, obviously, and as it gets hotter, more folks can have this as a heat-related illness. So some symptoms of heat exhaustion include heavy sweating, dizziness, fainting, and clammy skin. If you notice these symptoms, you'll stop what you're doing, rest in a cool, air-conditioned space, loosen up any tight clothing, sip on cool drinks, and use a towel or take a cool shower. If you're vomiting or if your symptoms do not get better after an hour, call 911. Next up, we have heat stroke, which was also mentioned in the chat. So heat stroke is a medical emergency, and this is when your body can't control its temperature. So during a heat stroke, your temperature rises quickly, you stop sweating, and your body cannot cool down. So this can cause damage to your organs, including your brain, due to a lack of blood flow. So if you experience symptoms of a heat stroke, you will call 911 immediately. A heat stroke can be fatal, and it can cause permanent damage if not treated quickly. So some of the symptoms include a throbbing headache, very high body temperature, so above 103 Fahrenheit, red, hot, dry skin, no sweating, confusion, fast or strong pulse, nausea or vomiting, unconsciousness or passing out. So again, this is a medical emergency. So if you see someone with these symptoms, call 911 immediately and move them to a cool place. Okay, next up, we have heat stroke. So if someone shows signs of heat stroke, call 911 right away. Again, this is very important. This is why we're kind of repeating this to drive this point home. Move the person to a cool air-conditioned space and try to lower their body temperature with cool cloths or even a cool shower. Do not give the person fluids, because if the person is unconscious or not awake, it can cause choking. So to prevent a heat stroke, you stay cool, drink water, and if you feel symptoms like cramps or exhaustion, move into a cool area immediately. Maybe if before you go outside or you're going to do any activities in the heat, you can take a towel, run it under some water, string it out, and then put it in your fridge. And when you come back in the house, you can use that. Regardless of your symptoms, this is a good way to cool down. Next up, we have sunburn. So sunburn happens from too much sun exposure. I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this at some point. And symptoms can take a few hours to show up and can worsen over the next day. So sometimes I'm sure we've been to the beach, you don't feel that great that night, but it doesn't feel terrible. Then you wake up the next day and you realize you have a lot of pain. Your skin is red and you feel like you're on fire. So UV rays are stronger now due to climate change. So we want to protect our skin more so now than ever. Wear a hat, sunglasses, apply SPF. So SPF 15 or greater is great. Put this on 30 minutes before going outside, going to the beach, and you want to make sure that you reapply. So every 30 minutes. So a lot of times we put sunscreen on once and then we go into the water and it rubs off. We're in these activities and we don't reapply. So make sure you reapply the sunscreen. So a quick tip, look for sunscreen that's labeled broad spectrum or UVA, UVB protection. These work best. So everyone should use sunscreen all summer, even all year round, no matter your skin tone. So even during the winter, if you're using a facial moisturizer, it should have SPF in it. If you have a severe burn, or if the burn covers a large area, or if you have a fever and intense pain, see a doctor. So I do see a question here in the chat that says, can you put sunscreen on sunburnt areas? So no, you want to wear the sunscreen before you have your sunburnt areas. And if you have any questions, just be sure to put them in the Q&A box. That way they can be answered in there by our support. But we'll have more information about this in a bit. So in some serious cases, sunburn can cause dehydration or even shock. And this is because the skin pulls water from the body to the surface. Some symptoms of this include fainting, low blood pressure, or weakness. If this happens, call 911. Next up, we have heat rash. So heat rash, also known as prickly heat, this happens when heat gets trapped under the skin. Usually our ducts get clogged. I'm sorry, sweat. It's more common in hot, humid weather and often shows up in the torso or the thighs, or where we have skin folds where skin touches skin. So think about in the groin, the upper chest, the neck, under the breast, in elbow creases. If you get a heat rash, keep the area clean and dry. You want to make sure that area is not moist, so clean and dry is best. You can use baby powder to soothe it and to help keep it clean and dry, but creams can make it worse. So you don't want to put any Vaseline or lotion on that area. All right, and then I'm going to close out my section with a question to you all. So let's put this on to practice. So in this scenario, a neighbor has been outside all day and is complaining about hot, red, dry skin, and a fast heartbeat, dizziness, and headache. What are the first 3 things you would do to help? Go ahead and put your, or select your answer on the poll that just came up, and then we'll give you all a moment to answer and we'll go over some. Okay, it's been a little over a minute, so I think we can go over these answers now. So some potential answers here would be to move a person to a cool location, air-conditioned space, or an area with shade, lower their body temperature with cool cloths. Again, this is where a cool rag from the fridge can be very helpful, and seek medical attention if symptoms worsen. Excellent. Okay, so let's just review a key takeaway now. So in summary, as we approach warmer weather, we really want to make sure that you know what to do if someone gets sick from the heat, and we want to drive this point home, help them to cool off, get help, and call 911 if you think it is an emergency. It's okay if you don't know what type of heat illness they have, whether they are having a heat stroke or heat exhaustion. It's best to help someone stay cool and call 911. Try to get help early before the person gets worse. Okay, so now we're talking about the groups most at risk for some of these problems. So extreme heat events can increase the risk of dehydration, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke for all people. But some groups in particular are particularly at risk. So we have the groups listed on the screen. So people who work outside. So think about utility workers, PGW, the water department, construction workers, athletes who exercise outside, people without a home, people without AC at home, or if they work somewhere that does not have AC. Some social factors are folks who are homebound, people who live alone, people experiencing homelessness. And some of our biological factors are older adults, so anyone 65 years and older, infants and children, pregnant people, and people with some chronic conditions. I've seen these mentioned in the chat earlier, so asthma, heart disease, diabetes. So these groups are more at risk for some of the heat-related illnesses that we talked about. And if you know anyone that fits into these groups, it's very important for you to share this information with them and help protect them before it gets really hot. So excessive heat can also worsen other pre-existing health conditions, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Checking in on those at risk. So if you are a caretaker or have family or friends who are most at risk for heat-related illness, check on them regularly. So the groups that we just talked about on the slide previous, if anyone fits into those categories that you know, you want to make sure you check on them during the summer months. Just check in and see, are they drinking enough water? Do they have access to air conditioning? Do they know how to keep cool? Do they have any signs and symptoms of heat-related illness? So as mentioned above, always seek medical attention if there is a concern for heat exhaustion or any heat-related illness. Okay, our next key takeaway, number 2. So prevention is key. So we don't want anyone to get to the point of having heat illness. This is why we're sharing this information with you now, and we're really trying to repeat some of the common important themes. So here are some important tips to remember and share with your communities, your loved ones, your neighbors. Stay hydrated with water, sports drinks, juice, skip out on the sugary drinks, and no caffeinated drinks. Plan ahead to limit your time in the sun, especially from 11 to 4. So if you have things to do, try to schedule them before 11 or after 4. If you start feeling overheated, do not wait. Get to a cooler place immediately. Prep your home with AC, fans, curtains, and any supplies you think you'll need to stay cool. We'll talk a little bit about this later. If you live alone, make sure someone checks in on you. So it will be nice that if you have a little group of friends and you all rely on each other to call one another and check in to make sure you're all okay. Okay, and we will close out with one more scenario before we jump into the heat and chronic health conditions. So this is another opportunity to test your knowledge. So let's say it's going to be 91 degrees today and you need to go grocery shopping. You also have to wait for SEPTA to arrive. What time should you go shopping? You go ahead and answer on the poll that just popped up on the screen. Okay, it's been about a minute now. We'll see a lot of answers came in, all correct. So you'll want to go in the early morning or in the evening. So again, you want to try to schedule things. I know it's hard, especially for doctor's appointments or other things you might have going on. But if you could try to schedule your activities in the early morning or in the late evening, that would be best to avoid being in the sun. And I will turn it over now to Jasmine, and she will talk about heat and chronic health conditions.
Hi, everyone. Back again. As we discussed, some chronic health conditions can make people more vulnerable to the negative impacts of excessive heat. So, Maria went over a few chronic health conditions, and we'll go over a few more. As you can see here, some of the conditions of concern are diabetes, obesity, mental health conditions, heart disease, kidney disease, and even respiratory diseases like asthma or COPD. There are many reasons why people with chronic health conditions and pre-existing health conditions can be negatively impacted by extreme temperatures, but some of the few that we like to point out are they're less likely to notice the changes in temperature. So if they, are out in the sun and things like that, and their body temperature starts to raise, they may be less likely to notice that temperature raise and that difference in temperature, which can, prolong them to getting to air conditioning or even seeking medical attention if they need it. Some medications that they may be taking can also worsen the effects of extreme the the effects of extreme heat. Things like mental health conditions, especially respiratory, not respiratory, my apologies, kidney disease and heart disease medications can all impact the body's cooling system by either causing you to sweat too much or not even sweat enough, or many other ways that the mechanism for the cooling system is impacted by these medications um, are impacted by these medications. Um, yeah, there are many ways that these medications can impact someone's um, ability to uh, stay safe during extreme heat. My apologies. And then lastly, most chronic health conditions are can raise the risk of dehydration. First up, we'll talk about mental health conditions. Sorry. Mental health conditions. So, as discussed, mental health conditions can put you at an increased risk of different things, especially worsening mental health symptoms such as anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and difficulty sleeping. This can make it more difficult to cope with your mental health conditions and your well being, especially when it's extremely hot outside and needs to and you're not able to use your normal coping mechanisms. Diabetes can affect the body's mechanism, cooling mechanism, and ability to cool down because of many reasons, but definitely because of damage to the nerves and blood vessels. That damage to the nerves can also reduce feeling in the feet. So I like to point out this hot tip here where um, everyone should be wearing shoes in the summertime, especially if you have diabetes, because if you don't have good feeling in your feet, then that can lead to injuries. I know we like to go to the pool and the beach shoeless, but it can really lead to a lot of damage if you're not able to feel the hot temperatures on the cement or even a cut that you might get from a seashell on the beach. So you want to take special care with that. Most people with diabetes can also need to exercise to manage their diabetes. So if you're someone who likes to exercise outside, maybe going on a walk, you want to try to avoid that during the hottest parts of the day because that can increase your risk of dehydration. And also, lastly, you want to keep your medications like insulin cool heat can directly affect some medications like insulin, EpiPens, or even asthma inhalers by um, through direct heat. So you want to keep them on your person, but out of direct heat. Respiratory diseases can also be made worse in extreme heat. I think I saw this in the chat. So asthma can be worsened by extreme heat and COPD. So if your lungs are already having a hard time helping you breathe due to whatever condition, then pollutants and even just humidity or dry air can make it harder for someone to breathe in the summertime. So those can trigger asthma symptoms like that shortness of breath, coughing, wheezing. So if you have a lung disease, you want to make sure that you're taking necessary precautions to check the air quality and stay safe and healthy in the summertime. Dehydration and imbalances in electrolytes can also lead to worsening lung disease like asthma. So you want to make sure that you're staying hydrated and keeping your electrolytes balanced with those like electrolyte drinks if you need them. Those are really great in the summertime. And watching for warning symptoms like shortness of breath, heavy sweating, dizziness, headache, and general like having trouble breathing with that wheezing and coughing, that can be an indication that the heat is affecting your already pre-existing lung condition. And you might need to take extra precautions, especially if you notice you're using your rescue inhaler early on in the summertime or often, then that can be an indication that you might want to talk with your doctor about how to stay safe in the summer heat. Lastly, heart disease and kidney disease. Heat affects the heart and the kidneys similarly. Both the heat can put strain on the heart and the kidneys. If your body's working really hard to cool itself down because it's so hot outside, then for the heart, it's pumping way too much, trying to do its regular job because your body is working overdrive to try to cool itself down. And that could put strain on your heart, especially if you have a heart disease. Kidneys is affected similarly. So again, if your body is working so hard to cool itself down, then it might be sending less resources to the kidneys. And if you have a kidney problem, then that can put strain on your kidneys, causing you to feel sick. Um, Poor air quality can also lead to blood clots, dehydration, and electrolyte imbalances, especially if you have a heart problem. You want to make sure that you are looking out for fluid overload if you have heart or kidney disease. This is when you have too much fluid on the body. You might see abnormal swelling, like in the legs. You might have trouble breathing or even a cough. This can signal heart or kidney stress. So if it's summertime and you're seeing these symptoms, you want to talk to your doctor, especially if you know you've been hydrating a lot, trying to stay cool. Just a quick extreme heat checklist that we like to go over so that you can have all the things you need if you or someone you know is struggling with heat and your chronic health conditions in the summertime. Discuss the risk factors and make a heat plan with your healthcare provider. You want to take your medications as prescribed. I know I talked a lot about how medications can make the impact of heat worse, but you still want to take them as prescribed because you don't want to not take them and then end up with worsening chronic health conditions. You want to stay hydrated, like Maria said, with water, fruit juice, sports drinks, and even avoiding that outdoor activity between the hottest parts of the day, which is between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You want to monitor your health, check for signs of worsening symptoms of your chronic health condition or new symptoms like those heat-related illnesses we discussed earlier. You want to wear sun protection, like Maria went over on the sunburn slide, SPF 15 or especially SPF 30 or higher, and something that has broad spectrum can give you the full coverage that you need. Again, everyone should be wearing sunscreen no matter their skin tone. And you want to practice stress management, especially if you're someone who has a mental health condition. Again, coping in the extreme heat when things are all awry can be especially difficult. So you want to make sure you have strategies for stress management and coping skills. And lastly, especially if you have a respiratory health condition, you want to check the air quality index daily. You can use this link that will be sent out to check the air quality just to make sure it's safe for you to be outside, especially if you have asthma. And now I'll turn it over to King, who will discuss the resources and tips on how to stay cool and safe this summer.
All right. So now I'm going to share with you guys some tips for how to stay cool while navigating through Philadelphia this summer. All right. So when temperatures rise in Philadelphia, the city responds in a few different ways, one of them being heat caution. When heat caution occurs, this means that the city starts sharing information with the public and it basically puts partners from the organizations on standby to provide assistance once deployed. The next thing that may occur, the next response that may occur is a code red. A code red triggers a 24/7 outreach to people who are unsheltered, so no one's left out in the dangerous heat. The code red is it's provided through the Office of Homelessness Services and the Department of Behavioral Health, Intellectual Disability Services. And then this process is it's also extended to individuals with pets. So no pets should also be out in extreme heat, especially dogs. And it is law for them also to be within shade and be sheltered. The last thing that will occur essentially in time of extreme heat response would be a heat health emergency. This is the highest alert. It's called when the heat gets dangerous, especially for vulnerable groups. The city determines when to deploy, not just from looking at the actual temperature, but the city also looks at the heat index to make the call. When that happens, a few things kick in. The PCA heat line opens, where you can speak with a nurse from the public health department. We have also mobile heat teams. They head out to check on individuals who are unhoused. This then opens cooling centers in the area, and they stay open longer for individuals so they can still be provided shade and still be in a safe area. And then it also halts utility assistance shutoffs, so no one loses power during times of extreme heat. If you want to stay in the loop and if you want to stay in the loop and have most of the up-to-date information that's going on within the city of Philadelphia, texting Ready Philadelphia to 888-777 or signing up for Ready Philadelphia is a great way to have the most up-to-date information for what's going on in your area. Something else you can also do as a secondary buffer can be just also signing up for our community response partner network to receive updates directly from us on important information. And we also just encourage you to share this with clients, fellow community members, and caregivers if it can apply and if you do feel like it will benefit. All right. So now we're going to talk about some home heat safety tips for how we can stay safe while indoors. So first and foremost, our first line of defense essentially for the extreme heat would be using an AC unit, right? But not all of us own or have access to an actual AC unit. So a great alternative can be to use a fan. Why? Because when outdoor temperatures are cooler, why? Because essentially we can put a fan within our windowsill and that provides the cool air to then be pulled into our homes, allowing that area to now be cooler, right? But sometimes, again, that also may not be the case because when temperatures are just as hot outdoors as they are indoors, using that fan is not beneficial for us because it's simply bringing that cool air into our homes, right? And it's circulating that outside cool air. It's bringing that hot air into our homes and it's circulating that hot air. So essentially, it's not doing anything for us. So another alternative that we can do if the fan isn't working is we can always spend some time in the lower areas of our homes. I know for me, when I visit my parents' homes, I spend a lot of time in the basement or essentially by the pool because those are the two coolest areas for me to stay cool in the house that's outside. And some other alternatives that we can do just to make sure that we're staying cool is just making sure we close windows, making sure we close our curtains and blinds during the day. I have blackout curtains within my own home, so that does help a lot in making sure that we keep the sun from beaming into our apartments or our homes and allowing that heat to then be held halted at those blackout curtains, right? And last but not least, just avoiding using ovens or stoves during very hot weather. Why? Because like I previously stated, if it's already hot outside, we don't then want to make our homes even hotter because essentially that can harm us. All right. So now we're going to talk about some ways for us to stay cool this summer. Well, I'll provide you guys with some resources for us to stay cool this summer. So the first one being cooling centers. So cooling centers are air-conditioned spaces open late during a heat health emergency. Sometimes they may be libraries or rec centers, but sometimes they may be libraries or rec centers, but it all varies essentially. If you weren't aware of what cooling centers were in your area or you were interested in potentially finding a cooling center in your area, you can always call 311 for that information. If you can't get to a center, an alternative could be just spending some time at your local senior centers, shopping mall, or even a friend's home who has AC, even if it's for 5 to 10, 15 minutes, uh, allowing, even if it's for 5 to 10, 15 minutes, essentially allowing ourselves just to cool our body temperatures, whether it's for 5 to 10 or 15 minutes, can essentially help our bodies out way more than essentially not getting any air at all, right? Another alternative that we can do this summer to stay cool will be just using public pools. So Philadelphia will be opening 50 public pools this summer, and many of them do offer free swimming lessons. I do encourage individuals to essentially use these resources to your benefit, especially if you do have kids, grandkids. This is a great way just for you guys to get out, one, stay cool, and have fun with your loved ones. And then last but not, oh, if this is something you guys were interested in, essentially what you would do is you would just essentially you can type in phila.gov/PPR to find out what local pools are in your area. And then last but not least, spray grounds. So within Philadelphia, there are 95 spray grounds across the city. This is a fun, free, and quick way just to cool down. Um, within Philadelphia, I know a lot of us probably do travel, whether we're using public transportation, whether we're walking, whether we're driving. But one thing I know that we all most likely can relate on is we do come across a lot of spray grounds when we're traveling through the city, right? And again, just like I stated with the pool, if you do have your kids with you and you are taking the train or you are driving, you do see a spray ground and it is 91 degrees, why not stop really quickly and just go for a quick run with your kids? It's something adults still enjoy to do. It's not just a kid activity, but you can also do with your kids and then get wet a little bit and then go on about your business and finishing off the day. That way you guys stay cool. You guys are making sure you guys are not suffering from heat exhaustion and you're still getting whatever task you wanted to get done completed for the day. All right. So now I have another question for you all based on the resources and information I just provided for you all. So the question is, it is 92 degrees and Miss Rose doesn't want to run her AC because her bill will be high. It is very hot inside of her home. What are some ways she can stay cool? If you guys can answer within the poll, we'll give you guys we'll give you guys about a minute just to get your answers in. All right, and as we're coming along up to a minute. Some of those responses were all right. Yes, using a wet rag, using a fan, correct. Visiting a friend's home, also correct. Visiting lower levels of our home, great. All great responses and all correct. These are always just for to help Miss Rose stay cool during the summer. Okay. So Outreach provides $2 admission to over 80 cultural sites in the Philadelphia and Delaware for individuals who receive public assistance for food or medical benefits. If this is something that interests you, or or you have a loved one or a friend who can benefit or who would be interested in outreach, you can find locations at art-reach.org, or you can always call the number above. Another great alternative that can keep individuals cool would be essentially visiting museums. They're free for high school students with their with their high school IDs. And the four museums you see below are free admission with an EBT or access card for up to 4 adults, and kids under the age of 18 are free. All right. So like I previously mentioned a little bit about a heat health emergency. So but within the heat health emergency is the PCA heat line, which is the Philadelphia Corporation for Aging. It is a great resource during a heat health emergency. What occurs during the situation is you can contact a health department nurse, where they can answer any heat related questions that you may have. They can also help you find cooling centers or connect you with utility assistance services. One thing we do like to mention to individuals is that unfortunately, the PCA heat line does not offer free ACs or fans, fan units, but what they do offer is on-site interpretation in languages like Spanish and Russian for individuals who do need it. The heat line is usually open from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., but you can always check phila.gov or your. All right. So another service is the PCA heat line, which is extended to seniors over the age of 60 that are eligible. It provides emergency support for utility assistance, medicine and medical supplies, food, and if you know anybody or you have a loved one essentially over the age of 60, you can always provide referrals for these individuals. They are accepted from recognized social agencies or clergy. The contact information is listed below, or you can always call the number listed above also. All right. So you may be able to prevent you may be delay your water from being shut off under certain circumstances. As you can see above, we have listed four ways essentially how we can halt water shutoffs in an 4 ways we can halt water shutoffs in an event that we are going through an extreme heat situation. The first thing to occur would just be applying for assistance. This gives the city's 30 days, a 30-day window of protection from water shutoffs to any customer. You can request a payment plan. So essentially, instead of paying it all in one big bill, you can pay it in increments. We can do a medical delay. Essentially, this is when you speak with your primary care physician, essentially about water services. If you speak with your primary, I'm sorry, about water services essentially, and then the Water Bureau may delay the shut off of your services for 30 days. And then the raise your hand exemption, this applies to seniors who are over the age of 65, or persons with disabilities or serious illnesses, or children who are under the age of 18 years. All right. So here we have a list of the neighborhood energy centers in the area. This is a great way to understand how bills work and how to weatherize your own and how to weatherize your home and stay connected with assistances. If this is something that interests you, or you know someone who can benefit from it, you can always click on the bit.ly or scan the QR code above. All right, so utility assistance. So Yusuf, it offers up to $1,500. Well, it may offer up to $1,500 for individuals who qualify for it, essentially just to help pay for energy bills. If this is something that benefits you, or you know someone who can benefit from it, again, we would love for you to just share these resources with them. You can always call the number below, or feel free to scan the QR code on the flyer and fill out the contact form. If you need a stack of flyers to distribute, just let us know and we can mail them to you. So Yusuf also stabilizes housings for families facing a housing crisis by addressing their immediate needs and removing the barriers to long-term stability. They're usually open on Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so we talked a lot about talking to your doctor when it comes to heat illnesses, and everyone needs a doctor you can. So don't be afraid to switch doctors until you find one that fits you. Your primary care provider helps keep you healthy and answers any health questions. The website lets you search for doctors by location, language, and it is perfect for those who are uninsured or underinsured. All health centers offer phone interpretation, and some have in-person help too. All right. So your mental health and well-being is also very important to us. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, please please call the number above. There is interpretation available 24/7. Or for free online behavioral health screening and resources, visit healthymindsphilly.org. Another great resource, while it is also available, is the mental health 911, which is another 3-digit short number to memorize for your health and safety, which is 988. Call or text this number if you or anyone you know is going through a crisis or even just needs someone to talk to. All right. So now I know that this was a lot of information for us all I'm taking today. If you just wanted a quick refresher, you can always visit the Extreme Heat Guide. Here it will talk about who's at risk, how to stay safe, and why it's getting hotter within Philadelphia. All right. So here, essentially, this is some of the materials that we provide to community members. You can order or print copies of our materials in multiple languages at the bit.ly link that you see attached to our summer newsletter. They are free and they will be printed in color and delivered to your address or your workplace. It just all depends on essentially how you fill out that form. All right, last but not least, stay connected and stay informed by emailing us with any follow-up questions you guys have or concerns you guys may have at public health preparedness at phila.gov. Stay up to date with all the resources that we do provide. One thing that I do want to make sure that we do stress, if you want to make sure you stay up to date with all the information with everything that's going on within the Philadelphia area, just make sure that we sign up for those Ready Philadelphia texts. All we have to do is text Ready Phila to 888-777, or you can visit phila.gov/ready. And last but not least, just making sure we sign up for our community response partner network, so the CARPN, essentially just to stay up to date and receive that information directly. Thank you for your time, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Jasmine.
Thank you, everyone, for joining our webinar today. We hope that these tips for you have been helpful and that you can have some great takeaways for yourself, your family, your friends, and your neighbors. Again, if you have any questions for us, comments, concerns, please do email us at that public health preparedness at phila.gov email, and we would get back to you. And enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool, stay healthy.